Hi, in today's video you'll learn about the right position for drawing, what paper to choose, what medium to start with, how to hold a pencil, what eraser to use, what mediums to go for next, and more. But before we start, I would like to invite you to our Architecture Drawing Discord server, the place where you can share, discuss and learn how to draw architecture. Link in the video description. So without any further ado, let's dive into it and hope we ain't gonna drown in it. The first really important thing, if you start learning, here's my advice. As a drawing artist and architect with 20 years of experience, I can tell you that learning using digital methods is not going to be good for you. When I was studying, my friends and I used to utterly hate that we had to do everything freehand. But that's the key to understanding the proportions, to understanding the scale, and getting the feeling of drawing a real line in the real life. This is something you cannot replace in your learning process. Later on, once you're going to know how to draw, you can just go into whatever software, whatever medium you'd like to use, whether it's going to be a tablet or some touch screen. There's plenty of options, but there's nothing like drawing using the standard, regular, well-known method, which is the pencil, fine liner, analog mediums. Really important thing is your position when you draw. So I assume that what my typical student is doing at home, he's sitting like that, watching his drawing like that. And what you see in this case is a sheet of paper deformed like so. There's nothing more confusing for the beginner artists when they are drawing and when you think that the lines you've drawn are parallel to each other, but it turns out they are absolutely not. This, what may be to your eye parallel because you're looking at it at an angle, is absolutely not parallel in reality because the angle changes everything. So that's what happens to most of the beginners. How to avoid it? There's a simple way, and that's actually why people use the easels. But you're not going to use an easel when you're going to be drawing architecture because it's not really handy, because you need some support for your hand. You want to make this angle as close to 90 degrees as possible. So you can use a wooden board or whatever board that is not textured and is really solid and it's not going to bend when you're going to be drawing on it. And I recommend to use like 60 by 80 centimeters board. So it's going to be handy. Even if you're going to go for some bigger paper like 50 by 70, you can still use some masking tape to stick your paper into this board so it's not going to move, and it's still going to have some safe margin to it, and you're going to have some extra space to rest your hand. So you can rest this board on a corner of your table or your desk. Just make sure to put something over here to prevent your desk or your table from scratching, because this edge is going to be really vulnerable towards all of the scratches. We're going to be moving this board up and down, back and forth, and most likely you're going to destroy your table that way. But there's another way. You can buy yourself or make yourself a trestle. It's just a support instead of using your table or your desk. It's really easy to make. You can even purchase it, I think maybe in your local Walmart, or where you can buy an easel, you can buy this trestle as well. It should not be really pricey, and that way you can have a wonderful set for drawing. You can sit comfortably, look at your drawing at the right angle, and rest your wooden board on this trestle. You can use a chair instead of a trestle, and you can rest this board on your chair's back. I'm telling you this so you can avoid all of the headaches and questions you may gonna ask yourself. Why am I not progressing? Why is my learning curve flattening out? The small details like that change everything. So once you start your drawing journey and you start learning, the really important thing is the paper you draw on. It's the key to your success, because choosing the right paper is really underrated, but I'm going to explain you why is it so important. So for this video, I've got a regular paper, which most of you are going to have at your home. That's the office paper that you use on a daily basis for your printer. It's really thin. It's about 90 grams a square meter grammage. And in here, I've got a Canson paper, which is meant for sketching and drawing. And it's over 190 grams a square meter grammage. It's not only about the thickness, it's the texture to these papers. The texture is kind of similar. I'm using these papers to test all of the fine liners. If you haven't seen any of the fine liners reviews, you may gonna want to see them. I'm testing my fine liners on both papers, on the cheap one and this more expensive one. For now, I would like to present to you how it really is and what's the difference between these papers in terms of the bleeding through the paper, in terms of the glide of the nib of your fine liner and of your pencil. So maybe we're going to start with a pencil. We're going to go for the 3B. Let's make some lines. With the pencils, it's not going to be this deadly different, beside the fact that this paper is going to get distorted and wavy, and the pencil most likely going to slightly distort this paper, its texture. Meanwhile, on this Canson paper, you can feel like the pencil glides way better. And if you have any textured surface underneath, it's less likely to print this texture onto your drawing. So that was 3B. I'm going to show you the 8B. Now a really important test. For 003 micron. This nib is like a hairline. It's really thin, and when you're drawing with this fine liner on a cheap paper or on some textured paper, it just feels like you're destroying the nib. Because when there isn't a good glide, this nib just gets sanded. Meanwhile, on this professional paper, it feels way better. And the lines you get on this paper are way more sharp than the lines on the cheap paper. So there's another thing to notice. It's really important. And now we're going to see much of a difference because that's a 08. You can see that maybe these lines are not going to be this sharp because on a cheap paper this fine line is going to leak to the sides. Maybe these lines are not going to be sharp, but on this Canson paper, which is way denser and its surface is slightly softer, first of all it should not bleed, which it almost did in here. I can see some tiny little signs of bleeding, but on this it will never bleed through. In here some fine liners just leave a print on your finger and you can smudge them. These Pigma just dry insta fast, so it's not a case, but maybe 04 of a Rotring is gonna smudge slightly on this cheap paper. Yes, as you can see, there is a print on my finger. But on the Canson paper, comparing those two fingers, there's next to no print on my finger. I felt like it was slightly moist. It did not get dry instantly, but now it just does not smudge and the lines are very sharp, so the lines are just as expected. And the last test, the 0.05 of a Faber Castell, we're gonna draw it next to the 003. It felt a bit like drawing on a sandpaper. On this Canson paper it feels way better. I really recommend you checking it out, or some other paper with no texture to it. You really want to look for something soft that your nib's gonna glide on freely. The last thing we're gonna test on these papers are gonna be the alcohol markers, which you may gonna go for in the future. Let's try to do ice grey too. And on this paper I expect a lot of bleeding. Oh, of course. It even bled through and left some marks on a Canson paper that's underneath it. A little touch, just a tiny little bleeding, but it did not get through. And to finish off, the Ice Grey 5, my favorite one for making really strong shadows. I love to use this marker. It bled through, quite nasty. Meanwhile here, it did bleed through slightly more, but it did not leave any print on our desk. So once you know what paper to go for, which is the 190, 180, maybe 200 grams a square meter grammage and really soft with no texture to it, what paper size should you go for? Personally, I recommend going for A3. That's a perfect size. The A3 is 420 by 297 millimeters, which is roughly 42 by 29 or 30 centimeters. It's the perfect size to learn and experiment with drawing. A4 is way too small. you cannot get as many details in your drawings as you can get on A3. You've got twice more space to experiment, twice more space to plan your composition. All of the drawings on my channel I'm preparing on A3, and the amount of details is just about fine. You can go for A2 or something like 50 by 70 centimeters is the most common format that you're using when you're studying architecture. And all of the studies artworks we used to prepare on 50 by 70, and I think that's pretty much it. Just a good brand of paper. Experiment with the papers. You have to find the one that suits you best. Just look for some well-known brands that are made for the artists. It's kind of important to go for some professional stuff, because what you want to do is you do not want to waste time on some medium that will not give you reliable results. You don't want to bottleneck your learning curve and your creativity with a wrong fine liner, pencil or a paper. So now let's talk about the drawing gear in general. As you can see, I've got plenty of pencils, fine liners, the charcoal sticks. I've even got the art pen by Rotring, my lovely markers, the alcohol markers that I love to use. I've got a Kneaded eraser, and I've got one thing that's really unsolicited in here. Can you guess? Of course, that's the ruler. You don't need it. You actually cannot use it when you want to learn how to draw architecture. Because what would be the freehand drawing with a ruler? Your lines are really mechanical then. There's no life in your drawing, no expression. And the most importantly, you do not learn how to draw. I assume that you want to learn how to draw architecture. You don't want to stop yourself. You don't want to flatten your learning curve. So follow me and listen to my good advices. But I think this is a really good basic starter. On my left hand, I've got pencils, which are of a B hardness, mostly. I've got one 3H to present you how they compare. And here I've got a utility knife. And you may going to think like, why utility knife? Because as you can see, these pencils are not sharpened with a pencil sharpener, they are sharpened with the utility knife. And that's how professionals sharpen their pencils, but we're going to come back to it later. Here we've got some fine liners, but I've just chosen 4 each. I've reviewed all of them on my channel, so the links to the reviews I'm going to put in a video description down below if you're interested in any of them. And maybe in the future I'm going to review the Winsor and Newton markers that I'm using on a daily basis. And as a little reminder, my trophy, I've got my Rotring art pens. And the last element that I'm about to cover in here is just the masking tape, and I'm using it to just adhere my paper into the surface that I'm drawing on so it does not move. It's absolutely not a must. I would even say that you do not need it at all. So first question you may going to ask me, how should I start drawing and what medium to choose? And here I come with an answer. This is what you're going to need. For pencils, and here's why you need them. They are the best medium to get started with. You can always make some corrections. Your lines are not permanent. And once you're going to make any kind of a mistake, you can always revert it. You can always press like a Ctrl Z, Command Z. You're going to go back. Here you've got your eraser, which is the Kneaded eraser. It's different than a regular eraser. We use it because you can form it like that. You can make a really nice precise tip, and the advantage to the eraser, which I'm going to present you later on in a video, is that you can kind of roll it and roll it on a paper. So that way you're like making your lines less visible, but you're not completely erasing them, which is really great feature to have, and I really recommend you to get one. In my case, that's a Faber Castell Kneaded eraser. So I've got the Faber Castell pencils in here, is the B softness. So how to think about the pencil's hardness. H is hard, B is bold. B gives a bold line, really black, and H gives you a sketchy, thin line, which is more technical, more blueprintish, and they wear down way slower than the B pencils. Why did I get B pencils if we're going to draw the architecture? Of course, because the artistic drawing, unlike you may going to think of it or just perceive it, is very artistic, and we need our lines to be very adjustable, and we want them to be pitch black when we need them to be. So before we're going to compare the line widths of these pencils, first of all, I'm going to show you how to sharpen your pencil, because I've mentioned before, we're not going to use a pencil sharpener. Am I mad? No, I'm not mad. That's the way you sharpen your pencils. And here's why. When you take a look at this pencil, it's been sharpened by me with the utility knife. And when you take a look at this one, let's compare them. So these pencils are absolutely different because I've sharpened them different. The lead of this pencil is sticking out way more than the lead of this one. And the shape of this lead is very regular comparing to the shape of this lead. Why is that important? When you're going to be using this pencil, its lead is going to wear down. You will just scrape this lead, and eventually, in a really short period of time, you'll make it dull really fast. And at the same time, your line width will increase over the time. It's really uncalled for. When you sharpen your pencil like that, you will not run into an issue. Your lead is going to maintain the same line width. At least it's going to be way more consistent than this one. It's not going to change this drastically over the time. It's way easier to control it. So that was the theory. So I've prepared specially for you the brand new pencil that I'm not going to sharpen using the pencil sharpener. I'm going to sharpen it using the utility knife. And that way you're going to see how it's done. First of all, you need to make sure that your utility knife is at least sharp. It's not really dull, it's not worn out. You can make some mark just all over your pencil to make sure you're evenly sharpening your pencil. And what I'm doing, I hold the pencil in my left hand like that. I leave my thumb to operate the knife. So that way the pen's resting on my index finger, and I push the knife with my thumb, maybe slightly clenching my fist, so I move the pencil inwards, and at the same time comfortably holding the knife, I just let it go. With this index finger and with this thumb of my right hand, I'm just controlling where it goes. So I'm just deciding upon the angle, just controlling it, but most of the work I'm doing with my left thumb. We're just gonna gently push. Okay, make sure you do not cut more than you need. As you can see, I did not cut at a very rough angle. I'm just barely gliding on a surface just to make it as pointy as I can. I'm just trying to give it a shape. Okay, now we're going to focus more on a tip. We don't want to be touching that portion anymore. Let's see if we can see the lead. I think we're really close. And once we're going to be exposing the lead, it's going to be really important not to break it. The lead is very vulnerable and it's really soft. In that case, it's a 3H, so it's not as soft as the 3B or 5B, let's say, but you still have to be careful. We're almost done, and what I like to do, sometimes I'm just trying to sharpen the lead slightly, like that. If you do not feel comfortable to do it like that, you can angle your knife perpendicular to the lead and just scrape it gently. You just need to get a bit of a practice, sharpen it that way to your desired width. Nice, and that's how you do it. That's a lovely sharpened pencil. So let's dive into the line comparison on these pencils. I'm going to smoke it later on. So take a look at the line widths that the pencils of a different hardness are going to give you. So first of all, we're going to take a look at the 3H, which is the hardest one. And I expect it to give really vague and really sharp lines. I cannot make the paper pitch black with it. It seems like it's going to be absolutely impossible. The lead did not wear at all. Maybe we sanded it slightly with this paper, but nothing really happened. So that's the 3H. Now we're going to go for the B. So that's the B. Take a look at that. That's a huge improvement, isn't it? Wow, look at these lines. These lines are way more black than the H pencil gave us. Now we're going to go for 2B, which is sharpened with the pencil sharpener. I've already sanded a lot of the tip, so the lines are not going to be of the same with anymore, it's going to wear out really quickly. So we would have to, you know, sharpen it again and again and again and again, which you do not want to. Now the freebie. I hope the camera catches it. Unfortunately, there may going to be some light reflection on it because the pencil makes it really reflective. And even I have to angle my head slightly to see if it's dark or it's not. Now the 4B. As you can see, the lines are becoming way thicker. From now on, I would say that we ain't going to see much of a coverage difference. You can make the surface pitch black with actually any pencil from now on. The 5B now. You can see how am I holding my pencils. Some people like to hold them the way they write. You know, some people have a habit of writing like that. Some people even write like that. The artists in general hold the pencils, the fine liners, slightly more like this. We actually like to make a slight of a distance between what we draw. We can use this to our advantage. I'm holding this pencil really far away from the lead. I'm not using it like that. I'm not holding it like that. I'm not saying that this is a bad way of holding the pencil. It can be bad for some cases. I hope you can see it on a video how many particles there are around. This lead is crushing under the pressure of my hand. So from now on, from the 6B, I have to be careful because these leads are really soft. And I hope you can see it in a video. The 8B has got the best coverage. That's just a comparison of the line widths on pencils, and I think it's really important to you as a beginner to know what to expect from them. So a few words about the Kneaded eraser. Take a look at that. All my tutorial videos on casting shadows, on drawing in perspective can be found on my channel. I'm going to put the links in the video description down below so you're not going to miss anything. Let's take a look. What can we do with this eraser? We can form it to be more precise, or we can just gently erase the lines. And there's a huge advantage to this eraser. It does not leave any mess. Because with a regular eraser, you have a lot of these crumbs, these rubber particles floating all over the place, and you have to wipe them with your hand. At the same time, you would just ruin your drawing. But this eraser is consuming everything. It just takes all in. It gets dirty over the time, so you have to replace it, but you know, you can just fold it like that and you've got a clean surface. It takes a really long time for an eraser like that to get completely useless. And I've mentioned before that you can roll it in the paper, so let's see. You see? It's amazing. So that way you do not risk rubbing with that eraser because it's really easy to unwillingly lift the paper because it's really sticky. And all of you, I believe, at least once in your lives have lifted the corner of a paper and absolutely ruined your drawing with the eraser, regardless if that was a Kneaded eraser or the regular eraser. So having the ability to roll your eraser over your drawing and make your lines less visible is a great feature to have. And you can always make a little bowl. You really want to put it back in a case because this eraser is going to take all of the dust in your room in and it's going to be useless then. Okay, so you've been drawing for a while. You're really happy with your results. So what's next? Do you have to be stuck with pencils or you can go for something more? People love pencils. I'm not going to be saying like you have to change. You don't have to change. That's just your freedom. That's your will. You don't have to stick to the pencil, and I'm going to show you what options you've got. Let's say you're really good at a pencil and you would like to give your drawing a more spice, more pitch black lines, more decisive lines, making it look like more like a print, and then you can go for the fine liners. Let's say Faber Castell, the Rotring and the Microns. Microns are my favorite for these thin lines. This fine liner is absolutely gorgeous. It offers the thinnest line width on the market, and it's a great pencil replacement. If you want to replace your pencils completely, you can sketch with it. You can pre-sketch your buildings with a pencil, maybe with some harder pencil, so your lines are not going to be this deadly black and hard to get rid of with eraser, and then you can trace your lines with a fine liner. That's absolutely okay. That's absolutely alright. People do it all over the place. I do it myself as well. And with that approach, we can go for some different line widths, and you can make a hybrid like that, which is a pencil plus the fine liner. And then of course you can get rid of all of these lines that you do not need and leave only those that you need now. Some fine liner sets off of the brush tip. I don't use it all over the place. Sometimes I like to use it to make some surface black really fast, so I do not have to cross hatch or waste my fine liners on it. It's a personal preference. Pigma, I think, they offer the best brush on the market, and maybe the unit pin. Their brush was not that bad. It looked terrible, you can see in my review, but later on it turned out to be kind of decent. So you can go for the Unipin brush as well. One thing to mention, the different fine liner brands differ slightly in the ink color. You will never see it on a video, but later on in the sunlight, when you're going to take a look at your drawing, you may going to see some differences. Like the Pigma lines are more faded, and the Rotring lines, in my opinion, are more black. And you know, it's just the way they are. They have a different inks inside. Different manufacturers, they differ slightly. If you're a glutton for punishment and you want to make sure that your drawing is going to be absolutely uniform, you're most likely going to want to go for only one brand of the fine liners, and do not mix them. Okay, so I hope you did not get lost throughout this video, and I hope that I explained to you the basics in the most approachable way. I was trying my best to do so. It may gonna seem a bit complicated when you start at first, but later on you're gonna slowly but surely turn this mess into something beautiful, and you're gonna progress, and you're gonna be really happy, because the drawing process is just to make you happy. So while I'm going to be cleaning all of that mess, make sure to subscribe to my channel for the future videos. I've got the whole architectural drawing course on this channel. If you wish to start drawing architecture, just drawing in perspective, and you do not know how to approach it, just make sure to check it out. It's going to help you a lot. If you like this video, please let me know in the comments. If you happen to have any questions, just make sure to join my Discord server. You can ask me in person. I can always give you some advice. You can show me some drawings of yours, and I can provide you with some constructive criticism. I'm there to teach, so make sure you join it. It's a great project, and I hope to make it the best architectural drawing community. Leave a like, post a comment, sub, and see you in another video. Happy drawing. Bye.